Right now, everything is strange. New and strange, and I'm not sure how to accommodate myself to the surroundings. Or, you know, I don't know how to run down to the corner store.
What year were you born?
21.
Okay. Where were you born?
In the Bronx, at home. My mother was afraid of hospitals.
Because of what?
Her father died in a hospital, so she had a great fear of hospitals. When I was about 5 years old, well, before then, we had lived in apartments in the Bronx and in Coney Island. I remember once there was some kind of a storm, and the ocean rose and flooded the streets that were adjacent to the beach. And I remember being on a third or fourth floor with my head out the window with my mother and watch the water flowing down the street. Very vivid memory of that. About my great-grandfather. He used to amuse his grandchildren by drawing little things. One day he was amusing them, and there was a bill of some kind on the table that had been paid, or something like that. And just to amuse them, he copied the signature that was on this paper. And when he got through, they couldn't tell the original from the copy. So he went to their local rabbi and said, "Look at this." And the rabbis told him, "You have a gift, but you have got to use it not against the Jews, but the Goyim." And so he became the forger. I had a son, my great-uncle, who then went out of town and would bring him documents and things that needed a full signature, and he would do it. And he became quite wealthy. The talent that he had did come down the family as artists. And several of my cousins, my aunt, and me to some small degree have all been artists of a kind. And I think, of course, that he most probably, it all came from my great-grandfather. Liegerman.
Liegerman?
Liegerman.
Okay.
That was my grandmother's maiden name. The Bronx. And there was this lovely green hill, and on the top of it was a little house that someone lived in. And my father told me that that was where the cooperative apartments were going to be built. And I remember it as being a beautiful green hill with this little house on the top. When we moved in, finally, and there was this tremendous apartment complex. It was divided into sections. Every section had its own entry with 4 flights. I think you could go up 4 flights without an elevator. My father's name was Sam Posner, and my mother was Rose, and her maiden name was Fox. My mother was born in 1900, which is what stuck in my head.
Yeah.
And my father was 5 years older. After school, drop your books off, grab your skates or whatever, or your jumping ropes, and out we'd go to Britain Street. And either we played hopscotch, we played war. I don't know if you know the game War, but you stand in a circle and you took a country, and the one that was in the middle would declare war, and you wouldn't know who he was going to declare war on. Mm-hmm. And so he would say, I declare war on France, and the one who had France would run, and then he would run after and have to chase them. Oh. There were a lot of ball games going on, and rope games, played jump rope and double dutch with the two ropes going. Mm-hmm. My parents and my uncles and some friends rented land from a farmer, and they put up very nice wooden platforms on which they pitched tents. So the tents were not pitched directly on the ground. And the farmer built outhouses. I had very constipated summers for us. And we would fetch water from his well, had a pump, and we would carry. My mother had big arm muscles because she would go and fill up 2 pails of water and carry them from the farmer's house to where we had our tents. My mother, Rose, was the third of 3 daughters. And it was a big disappointment to my grandparents because she wasn't a boy. So she was kind of, what's that story about the 3 sisters and the one sister that was always left out? Mm-hmm. Well, she was the one. She was very demanding. I had to be perfect in every way. And I wasn't, of course. But fortunately, I had a wonderful father. Mm-hmm. Milt got his first job after graduating and said to his mother, this is hearsay, you've been working hard. I think it's time I've got a job. I think it's time you took the kid. He has this brother, half-brother, 16 years younger than he. So he said, we'll find a place for you in the country. I have this job. I can afford it. So they went looking, and they were on their way to another place when they passed the community that my parents had the house in. And she says, I think I know some people in there. So they went in and they rented a house with the understanding that his mother would take care of the child while the owner of the house would go to work. And we used to have community lectures or musical artists or something that would come. And there was this Friday night lecture. And you had nothing else to do, you went. And I saw there were 2 girls that were not quite as old as I, about a year or 2 younger than I. And I see them standing and talking to a young man. Well, far be it for me to let them get away with it. So I went over and asked one of them for a cigarette. She didn't smoke. She didn't carry anyway. And I kind of knew that. So he said, "Oh, here." And that was it. You know, it was a summer romance. They don't last.
Just 70 years, right?
Moved into Glen Rock, and people said, "You're crazy." You know, it's an all-white, anti-Semitic kind of place. I guess it was a parents association, some kind of something. Yeah. And somebody referred to me as Mrs. Schwartz over there. And Betty heard, I didn't realize. And then I said, well, maybe they think Brown or Schwartz, you know, colors. And Betty immediately came over, and she said that was not a mistake. She took me under her wing, and that was it. Well, the 4th of July was always a great deal of fun. And then when Carl came along, he thought it was all for him. Well, we were having a party at our house, neighborhood picnic. And I said to him, I dropped something, and I bent down to pick it up. My water broke. Milt thought I was peeing in my pants. And I said, no. Because he said, get in the house. I said, I'm not going into the house like this, because I was dripping. And I said, my water broke. You better take me to the hospital. One day we were walking through an art show. I was commenting, and somebody said, oh, are you an artist? And I said, oh, no. And Tony said, she may not be an artist, but her taste is impeccable, which really flattered me no end. I thought a great deal of his artisanship. He was very quick, very, very bright and very quick. And quick to adapt whatever you saw. He would see something and try very hard to emulate that. It was very interesting. He was very adventurous. Neil was a people-pleasing person. Paul was not cuddly. He would wriggle out of your arms to see what was going on. As a baby, you know, you'd hold him and he was busy looking at the world all around. Neil was a cuddly, kind of very friendly person. The Goliards were practicing, and the neighbors were standing outside listening to the music. And Milt said, well, come on in. And that became a party.